Hello and welcome to the end of the year 2022 awards. We decided here at OLE to do things a little bit differently. Normally, when you do an award show, you get people who've watched a ton of wrestling and go ahead and talk about the major companies. We decided we're going to get people who watch specific companies. And we're going to get those experts to talk about the companies that they watch on a consistent basis. We have, to my right, yes, right, Cody Defoe. Cody Defoe, as you all know, co-host with my co-host, Astrid Pizarro, Making an Impact. So obviously Cody will be talking about New Japan. No, I'm just kidding. Cody will be referencing all the things wonderful about Impact Wrestling. Down here, we've got Mel Bell Collins, who, as we know, works with Backbreaker Media and OLE to do wonderful shows, but more importantly for our show today, covers New Japan and Stardom with her co-host, Andre C. And of course, I brought in a friend of mine down in the other corner, Lauren Goodnight, who is a member of the Collahunity with Tom Collahue, and she watches predominantly AEW. So I figured she was the perfect person to bring on to talk about all things All Elite.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this.
And me, we all know what I watch. I watch NXT. But I also watch main roster WWE as well, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take on the WWE side of things. We do have some friends in the comments, so we're going to go ahead and talk to them. We've got Astrid Pizarro, who is very, very excited for this. As I've stolen all of her co-hosts, I figured she would be. We got a good
really
friends
have.
Turnbuckles. I really have. I'm here, Mel's here, Cody's here. All of her co-hosts have been stolen for this show. We do have Chris Parrish, and as she says, look at all of my co-hosts. And Lauren's is just a co-host of hers that she hasn't worked with yet.
Probably. This is my first time broadcasting again in a few years. I took a hiatus. So this is a test run for me. See if I can still hang.
So we had some discussion before the show about how we should go ahead and do this. And what we decided is we're going to go award by award. We don't have an order for that, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the award that's at the top of my list of pictures here, and we're going to go ahead and start with Women's Wrestler of the Year. And we're going to go ahead and start All Elite. Who is the All Elite Female Wrestler of the Year?
Everybody is making noise about Jade Cargill. I personally would love for it to be someone like Hikaru Shida, who held up dark quite a lot, but she was gone for a lot of the summer. She was doing stuff with either TJPW or Stardom, Noah. I can't remember. And that's just me being vaguely ignorant. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about that zero to hero story that really makes people care about wrestler of the year, come up of the year, moments of the year, you're going to end up with JB Hayter. There's no question. She used to wrestle for AEW during the COVID period. And when she came back, she looked like a whole different woman. She had toned up. She had gotten muscular and strong like she was before. But when she came back, she was ready to beat an ass. And then she did and continued to do it. And it made her probably the most compelling main roster star outside of Jade. And Jade's been doing squash matches, so I can't put her on top.
Does anybody have an opinion about JD Hayter and the work that she's been putting in All Elite Wrestling? I know we all don't typically watch All Elite, but we know things that are going on.
Mm. I mean, with myself, I don't really watch AEW, but she has been someone who I've obviously known about because of her history within Stardom. That booty, though, like that's the one thing I follow her for is that booty. I'm a straight lady. I like the boys, but gosh diggity dang, that booty.
She wears the thigh guards, and it's just like, it's beautiful. It is a gift.
And she has the butt lift straps underneath also that Rhea Ripley has made very popular with that little strappy there that gives her just that little bit of butt lift.
Speaking of lifts, we're going to go ahead and move on to Impact Wrestler of the Female Wrestler of the Year. Who is the Knockout of the Year in the Impact Zone, Cody?
Ooh.
I went back and forth on this one a lot. I feel like kind of the choice at heart would be Mickie James with her last rodeo and on her way out. But I feel like as much as I wish and I want to be able to choose that, it's hard to deny what Jordynne Grace has done this year. She absolutely has been the Knockout of the Year, starting the year with the Digital Media Championship and her feud with Matt Cardona. She climbed back up. She wasn't even in the title picture at the start of the year, worked her way back, has really worked on her promo work, on her in-ring work, and ended up in a position where it felt natural and it felt appropriate in the Queen of the Mountain for her to be the one to take that title, and has been on an absolute run since taking that title. Two fantastic matches with Masha Slamovich, a great build going on right now with Mickie James. She's feuded with a lot of the other women in the division as well, back and forth with Chelsea and Deonna and Tasha. Lots going on in the division there, but Jordynne Grace has had an absolutely stellar year, and I'm really excited for where she's going with her title run and what the next steps are for her.
Yeah, it's hard to argue anything about Jordynne Grace. She's one of the most predominant women in the Knockouts division for years at this point. She's put on the map the idea that you can be buff and beautiful. And I think that's a really interesting, different opinion that we haven't had since China. It feels like we haven't had that kind of a character since China. And I think that Jordynne Grace is bringing that back. The big mama pump, things like that. But more than that, she has great matches. She can convincingly wrestle against the men, and it doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel like it's a gimmick. It just feels real and natural. And it's hard to argue with Jordynne Grace ever being at the top of any card.
I have to agree. I absolutely love Jordynne Grace. Just as a lady, like, she has body goals. That woman has arms that are just massive, those thighs, like, and like being married to Jonathan Gresham, having someone to do just personal study with those submissions, I can't imagine that she's not going to have an even better 2023 than she's did 2022.
Absolutely. I think that she filled a niche that Tessa Blanchard left behind, and she's just a much more palatable person personally. She's not a racist. She's, it's not that she's family friendly, but she's marketable. She's marketable.
She's less problematic.
And that's what Impact needed for their Knockouts division this year. They needed someone marketable because Tessa was off the table. And they also, my God, she's great.
Oh yeah, Jordynne also has this ability to apologize. If she's done something wrong and she acknowledges that it's wrong, she apologizes for it and sees fault in it. Unlike Tessa, who was very, nope, this is how I think, this is how it is. Jordynne, I feel, is a very more appropriate role model material for sure.
And you can't just do things like Tessa did in Japan. You can't just be a blatant racist and think it's not going to get back anymore.
It's the social media age. Everyone's going to find out. It's the social media age. Everyone is going to find out everything you do. I don't understand why there's still bad behavior.
It's like, don't you know you're always being watched?
Big brother.
Just because it's a foreign country, you can't be throwing around the racism. I don't think we should even be talking about Tessa in the same sentence as Deonna, and that's my fault.
No. I mean, Tessa belongs in this discussion because we're talking about Impact and Knockouts and that ability to cross the boundary of male versus female. And Tessa's the example that you use. But speaking of Japan and people performing in Japan, we're going to go ahead and move to Stardom. See, I got all of this. I got this under control. This isn't like NXT. It's not like Taking Over where I'm just going to go ahead and just ramble through. I got this. We've got Stardom.
We got organization today.
We've got New Japan / Stardom, I guess I would say, Female Wrestler of the Year, since the two companies are somewhat linked now.
Yeah. I believe New Japan actually bought Stardom. So they're now and
Who
they
she
own
rode
the
with.
company. Superstar for Stardom this year that I picked was someone who had a very consistent year. When I say consistent, she wasn't winning titles throughout the entire year, but she was consistently active and she was consistently interesting in her promos, in her work, in her in-ring performance. I'm talking about the wonderful, and Cody loves her, Booby-san, Mina Shirakawa. This was out of left field because we had such a great year for Julia. We had such a great year for Suri. We had such a great year for Saya Kamitani. Two of those women making the top 10 PWI 150 list. But Mina Shirakawa has been absolutely consistent from the moment I started watching Stardom a year ago till now. She's been active. She's been feuding with people. Her feud with Mirai was actually one of the first moments where I saw how over the top Mina Shirakawa could be, where she was just like almost acting like she was just really like having a complete mental breakdown, eating pictures at her promo and just being so emotionally charged. She puts everything she has into everything that she does and to every match that she does. I don't know if anyone has caught the most recent show, the Queendom December 29th show. Mina Shirakawa actually took a huge step in her Cosmic Angels history and broke away from Cosmic Angels, forming her own faction now, Club Venus, adding Zaya Brookside and Mariah May to her standings. These girls, this faction is brand new. They look gorgeous. And let's be honest, we know Brookside, we know Mariah May. Yeah, Mariah May. These girls are going to kick the crap out of each other. But the most interesting thing about this is she cut her promo in English as opposed to Japanese. So this tells me that this is not only just the start of Mina Shirakawa and her Stardom kind of explosion. This is going to be an opportunity for these three women to take Stardom and the name of Stardom internationally. So I'm very, very excited about this. Do you guys know much about Mina Shirakawa and her history there?
I
Yeah,
don't. So
Lauren does.
I was gonna say
I
everybody
watched
else. I'm
I watched a lot of Japanese wrestling for a long time.
Yeah, she's had quite the year, and just coming back from a shattered jaw after taking quite the. I don't want to say it's a botch because it's Japanese wrestling, a strong style. I mean, you're going to have a knee to the face a couple times, but taking that very similar, I think it was a Phoenix Splash from Saya Kamitani, just the knee catching her right in the jaw, absolutely shattered everything. So the December 29th show was actually her return to Stardom after getting her jaw repaired. So this kind of shocked me. When she did come out, she had a new costume. She had the girls with her. I was like, she's not dancing. She's not doing the "we're delicious" thing anymore. This is weird.
She's definitely come a long way from the start of the year. I watched more Stardom at the beginning of the year. I fell off through the spring and summer and haven't really picked back up again yet. But what I saw of her back when I was watching consistently, she was always entertaining. She was always very skilled and very flush in the ring. She was clean in all of her movements and all her actions. The feud that she was having with Thekla at the start of the year was one of my favorite parts of what I was watching Stardom at the start there.
Thekla was a close second for me, but Mina just did a lot more this year.
In talking about a pick-me-up, we're obviously going to be talking about Rogue Energy. Rogue Energy sponsors everything that we do at OLE, and I just wanted to go ahead and give them a shout-out right here, where you can go ahead and you can click the QR code down over by Lauren Goodnight's photo, and you can go ahead and take care of that, and you can get the wonderful flavors. I know Mel has a ton of these flavors, so I'm going to go ahead and let Mel talk about all the wonderful flavors that you can get from Rogue Energy.
Yes, yes. Andre and myself have actually had the privilege of trying the blood orange flavor, which tastes like you're eating like pieces of fruit. The sour candy one tastes like a liquefied batch of Sour Patch Kids. And the Rocket Pop one is just absolute perfection. When you do get the shakers, you are allowed to choose 6 different flavors that they have available to choose from. So you get to pick which ones you want to try. If you're not interested in the blood orange, you can get something else completely.
Yeah, and to find that, you would go to rogueenergy.com and use our promo code OLEPODS to get 10% off your order. So definitely make sure you go check it out. Go to the website. They have free trials, so you can go ahead and get a couple flavors to give yourself a try. RogueEnergy.com, promo code OLEPods. So we've talked about Women's Wrestler of the Year. We're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about Feud of the Year. And we're going to go ahead and continue staying with Stardom and talking about the Stardom Feud of the Year.
What about WWE, Ed?
Oh, yeah, I should.
Yeah. So now I can find my notes.
I did forget that WWE is part of this, isn't it? So, I'm going to be obvious. I'm going to be transparent here. The obvious answer is Bianca Belair. She had one of the best years that almost any woman in WWE could possibly have. Rhea Ripley has come alive in 2023. She's reinvented herself yet again, and this relationship with Dominic Mysterio in the Judgment Day has made her an even bigger star than I thought she could have been. And I thought the world was her oyster coming out of NXT. But I'm not going that route. I'm going with someone who's no longer with the company. I'm going with someone who started the year as a champion and who would have ended the year as a champion had things not transpired right at the end of the year. Yes, I'm going with Mandy Rose. I'm going with the woman who unified the NXT UK and NXT Women's Championships. This woman ran NXT for well over a year. She was a champion for over 400 days. She would have broken Shayna Baszler. She was days away. She literally had to get through one title defense to have broken Shayna Baszler's record for the second longest NXT reign of all time. She never would have passed Asuka. We'll be honest. She would not have passed Asuka. Would never have gotten to the longest reign. But Mandy Rose ran NXT. She was the main attraction. She was the reason why many people tuned into NXT. And to be honest, she had a year that is going to get forgotten by so many people because of the amazing year that was had by Bianca Belair, because of the renaissance that we've had from Bayley, from Rhea Ripley, all of these wonderful female talents in WWE. But we can't forget about Mandy Rose.
I'm honestly surprised you tried to forget about her.
No, I mean, it actually says, wow, what a surprise. I mean, yes, I'm a massive Mandy Rose fan. I will admit, this was probably a selfish pick. But at the same time, everybody sings the praises of Bianca Belair. Everybody sings the praises of Rhea Ripley and all the wonderful things that these women have done. But we forget that Mandy Rose is one of the only women in wrestling who started the year as a champion and would have ended the year without losing that championship. There's no other women's wrestling champion in the prime divisions that has held the title throughout the entire year. And I think that needs to be taken advantage of because there are so many wonderful things. We have Barry jumping in as well saying Mandy had more personality than the rest of the NXT. I mean, the NXT women's division is coming along. It's at least the one thing you can say about that NXT women's division is that it's deep. It is a deep roster of talent who are learning to be a star.
Yeah. At the beginning of the year when we were doing NXT, you never would have convinced me that Mandy was going to be champion for the entirety of the year. I spoke avidly about it, that she was there as just a veteran piece until the younger stars started to develop and come along. And now here we are 12 months later, and she was that standard bearer for the NXT women's division for well over 13 months. Better part of 14 months that she held that title, held that division up as they went through a pretty big transition from a whole bunch of stars to a whole bunch of women that are still getting their footing and getting their feet wet in wrestling as a whole. It's been a very impressive reign for her. It's been a very, very well-deserved reign for her after all the different things she did when she went up to the main roster and floundered and didn't look as much of a wrestler as she ended up being at the end of the day. So very well deserved as the WWE Woman of the Year.
And had just people just kept their nose clean and not ratted on her, she'd still be champion today. Saying.
Fucking snitches, man.
Yes.
No one likes
Snitches get stitches.
But we
she
are
wasn't doing anything illegal. No one had to tell on her shit.
Hmm.
We are going to jump back to Stardom to go ahead with Feud of the Year in Stardom now that Mel hopefully has her notes.
This one I actually struggled with quite a bit. I actually had I sent you my official choice, and then I also had a runner up because the runner up was actually officially addressed at the Queendom show, which was the feud between Julia and Suri that has been just boiling since the springtime when Suri separated from Donna Del Mondo to form God's Eye. Um, but the feud of the year for me, which was the funnest and had the most odd outcome for me, given what the situation was the feud between Tom Nakano and Natsupoi. These girls are so cute. They're so little. Andre and I, appropriately refer to them as the space fairies of Stardom. They look so heckin' cute. The things they were saying to each other about each other during this feud, though, savage. These ladies were not nice to each other, just beaking off back and forth. They ended up having this huge kind of series of matches that included a cage match, which saw Tom Nakano putting Natsupoi in a dragon sleeper while holding her at the top of the cage before dropping her into the waiting arms of the referee, who's just begging her to put her down, but not like that. Um, the feud ended up culminating in a big faction battle between the Cosmic Angels and Donna Del Mondo. The result being Natsupoi actually eliminating her faction member Julia to cause the win for the Cosmic Angels, and then Natsupoi joining Cosmic Angels with Tom Nakano to form the Goddess of Stardom team Meltier, which just recently lost the Goddess of Stardom championships. They were actually the champions after this feud going into the Queendom show. However, they were outpowered by the incredible experience of Yu and Nani Takahashi. But like, these girls went from being like incapable of being in the ring together without slugging it out to dressing in matching tutus with cute little crowns and singing and lip syncing their whole intro. It is the most amazing thing. If you have not actually seen their intro, I highly recommend you check it out. It is so cute to just see them come out. It's not cute seeing them get wrecked by Nane and you, but it's really cute to see them come out in this hyper stylized kind of thing that we're not really used to here. It's kind of like North American wrestlers, they kind of come out, they yay, we're here, and they get in and they do their thing. In Stardom, it's like their intros are as much a part of their performances as the actual in-ring stuff. Definitely something to check out. Again, these girls were just slugging it out. They went from being local enemies to like besties in like one match. It was very confusing. Um, Cody, do you have an opinion on these girls? I know you've seen Tom Nakano before. I don't know if you've seen a lot of Natsupoi.
I think I actually did watch that cage match, if it's the one that I'm remembering. That
Yeah.
was extremely brutal and really, really like at the start of the year, I would have easily put it as a match of the year candidate. That it was just a fantastic storytelling, fantastically brutal, hardcore war between these two women, and two tiny women that you wouldn't expect to go and put their bodies on the line like that in any other company in the world. So absolutely, Tom and Natsupoi, anything that I've seen of them has been fantastic, and that match was very well done. I didn't unfortunately watch much after that to see them form the team and become champions, but the feud leading up to it was very well done.
It was very fun feud.
And we're going to go ahead and move on to the Impact Feud of the Year.
So there's a few options here. There's been quite a few really good feuds. Nothing that's really spanned the entire year necessarily, except for one. But I mean, in the running, you had Josh and Violent by Design. You had Josh Alexander versus Frankie Kazarian. You've had Jordan Grace and Masha Slamovich. You've had Mickey James and Chelsea Green has kind of stretched out over a long period here. But ultimately, when I was trying to think of the feud of the year, I was trying to think of something that actually lasted the year and actually kept everything consistent and captivating and long storytelling. And I ended up on Honor No More versus the entire Impact Wrestling roster. This feud spanned the entirety of the year, with Honor No More debuting at Hard to Kill in January. You had this match on the graphic there, the No Surrender match against the Eddie Edwards led team that ultimately ended up in Eddie turning on Impact and revealing himself as the true leader of Honor No More. You had it stretch out across an Eddie Edwards championship match against Josh Alexander. You had Matt Taven and Mike Bennett consistently in the tag title picture. You had PCO putting his body on the line week in and week out. You had Kenny King active consistently in the X division. And I think it led to about 5 or 6 different 5-on-5 matches over the course of the year between Honor No More and different gatherings of the Impact roster, including the Motor City Machine Guns, the Bullet Club. You had Heath and Rhino in there. You had Josh Alexander, Frankie Kazarian. You had Rich Swann, Willie Mack. Every member of the Impact roster came to defend Impact from the Ring of Honor incursion, as it were. And none of it got stale. None of it got bad. It wasn't over the top great, but it was strong storytelling throughout, leading up to the unfortunate contract end of the Kingdom and Maria Kanellis and Vincent all leaving the company, and now everybody else from the group. I mean, we're still seeing it going into the new year. We have Eddie Edwards versus Jonathan Gresham coming up on this next year's Hard to Kill card that was started from the No Surrender card where Eddie Edwards attacked Jermaine Gresham, knocking him out of Team Impact. So it is very long-term storytelling, and it's built a lot of different pieces and a lot of different stories into the Impact lore that they can move forward and build with going into the future.
And anytime I can have the Kingdom on my screen, it's a wonderful day, because Matt Taven is an absolute gem. He is an underrated star. And that Ring of Honor World Championship run that he had is looked back on negatively because of everything that happened afterwards. But the idea that you win the world title in the Garden is probably a moment that people forget that needs to be remembered when it comes to Matt Taven. But I think they were the perfect people from Ring of Honor to go to Impact and lead that faction, to be the front man of that faction, to have the Kingdom there. When you have Maria and you have Matt and you have Mike, it just feels right. And they're also the kind of people that can come in and come to a company, make an impact, and then leave.
Well, and having Maria Kanellis is such a bonus to anywhere she is. Eddie Edwards is a mouthpiece that can hold his own with anybody in the ring on the mic, but Maria Kanellis as the mouthpiece of Honor No More, even with Eddie being there, she really carried the story and carried that group and just felt like the biggest star of the group, even though she never actually wrestled. She took a couple bumps, but she never wrestled. She just carried that story for the group through the entire time they were there.
I also always love an opportunity to sing the little ditty, "How do you solve a problem like Maria?"
I don't understand what the problem with Maria is. Is there ever a problem with Maria? I mean,
no, but I'm still angry at Matt Taven for getting him Volador Jr.'s head shaved.
Maria is a problem for anybody who crosses her.
Or apparently sings a song.
She almost killed me, but that's besides the point. That's another story for another time. It's not her fault. It's kind of her fault. It's mostly my fault. I'll explain that to you guys after we go off the air. Going ahead for WWE's Feud of the Year, because I don't have a graphic for the Impact, for the one for AEW, so we'll get to that in a minute. But we're going to go ahead and go to WWE, and I'm going to ask Cody to keep his opinions to himself for just a few minutes.
Uh-oh. Cody mute.
No, Cody doesn't have to mute. But Cody's going to make an appearance here in a moment, and I know he's going to. My Feud of the Year started at WrestleMania, when his son came back home. When Cody Rhodes came back to WWE. And Cody versus Seth Rollins may be one of the best told stories in WWE for a quick 3-month span before this horrible injury that Cody has had here. And yes, I had to use this picture because it's just remarkable that he was able to wrestle through this match. But the WrestleMania match was an absolute delight. The middle match I always forget about, and then we have the Hell in the Cell match, which was an amazingly well-told story from both participants of Seth being able to have a 5-star match with Cody, but also make sure that Cody can get through the match without hurting himself even further than he already is. Cody Rhodes is going to be instantly propelled into the WWE title picture upon his return, most likely at the Royal Rumble. We saw him this week on Raw saying that he's on his way to recovery and he's looking forward to getting back to the title picture. Cody Rhodes leaving AEW and coming back to WWE in most years would have been the story of the year in every wrestling company. Except in 2022, where everything and anything else happened, and this is considered like maybe top 10. Like maybe top 10. It's just an amazingly topsy-turvy year. But, I mean, it was hard to pick any feud. The only other feud I thought about was Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso. It was really the only other feud I could think of that could be feud of the year. Because, man, that has been one of the most entertaining things in the world. But I did
That's
go
just
with
been
Cody
more of a
Rhodes.
verbal feud, though, hasn't it? It hasn't been like a physical.
Yeah, no, they've never had a match.
Just a story.
But it's a
Fun,
great story.
fun story.
Yeah.
Huh.
But, I mean, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins has been some of the greatest matches WWE's put on the entire year.
And he gave an extraordinary performance before he headed out to WWE. Man, that ladder match with Sammy Guevara showed what he was taking with him. It just did. I mean, granted, AEW is pretty darn fine without him. We know what he took. Besides a, cutter off a ladder and a bump on a flaming table. But no, Cody and Seth just
Tore the house.
that was what everybody talked about this summer.
I have always been a Cody Rhodes fan. I all the way back to Legacy, to dashing Cody Rhodes through the Stardust years, broken Cody Rhodes, everything he did all the way up until that. I had the amazing opportunity with Mel about 6 years ago to meet him at a show here in our local company.
Him and Brandy, yeah.
Yeah, him and Brandy were both here. I got a picture with him holding the then ROH World Championship. I have a signed Dashing Cody Rhodes shirt.
Yeah, I got some right there.
I wish that I could be on board with this, Ed. I respect the hell out of the man for wrestling with the torn pec like he did. At the start of the year, I didn't respect the feud at all because I was hurt that the man that walked away built his own company and then walked away from that company to go back to where he said he'd never go back to. I'm sure Lauren remembers part of this in kind of our Discord chat as well at the start of the year, that I was very vocal and very verbal about this, that I would not watch anything that Cody Rhodes was in WWE because I don't support the going against what you've preached for years.
Yeah. And to say that he founded AEW is a stretch. He was the member of the elite that was like, oh, I'm going to coattails this. That was it. He didn't put any money into it, as far as I know. There's no reports of anything like that when we know that, like, the Bucks put cash in. So...
You're right. I meant it more founded as though it was.
What he brought to AEW was truly amazing. But yeah, I mean, I did not watch his return to WWE either for very different reasons.
He certainly made it sound like he was a lot more important at AEW than maybe he might have been. Maybe that's part of the reason why he left. Who knows? I mean, he's only going to be the one who really truly knows why he did what he did. That being said, though, I mean, there's so many things that we say we're not going to do in our earlier years, and then as we get older, we're like, that's suddenly a better option. I kind of had the same opinion as Cody when I did hear about the whole thing. It's like, why did you leave complain, start this new company, or be involved in the start of this new company, and then be like, man, I'm mad, I'm going back home. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But that being said, I mean, it doesn't seem to have affected his popularity at all. I mean, he's now popular still with AEW. I mean, I'm sure fans still talk about him very lovingly. You know,
Oh, yeah.
WWE very, very happy to have him back. So it's a very interesting choice to say the least.
Yeah, but I mean, it was hard to find anything that was even remotely on that level when it came to
Mhm.
feuds this year.
Well, yeah, because you guys kind of had that split of the eras where it was like you guys were finishing off the atrocity of the Vince McMahon era and then starting again the new Triple H McMahon era. It's like it doesn't surprise me that there was kind of like that weird split there where it's like there could be better stuff in here versus this one.
Yeah, it's very split because Triple H is starting brand new feuds and telling his own
Mhm.
stories and revitalizing the careers of some talent, while talent that we've known for years and years are going through. And it doesn't
Mhm.
help that your championships have been, unified with one guy who works not necessarily part time, but doesn't wrestle a whole lot. So he doesn't have a
Mhm.
ton of matches. So the
Mhm.
storytelling that he does is more storytelling than it is storylines and matches.
Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
becomes problematic. Speaking of people who aren't in the ring very often anymore, the AEW story feud of the year.
Well, that gave that away.
There is a plethora of BS to try and push through. The in universe canon feud. I mean, you can't. I hate to give Punk any roses after what he did to the wrestling, to the independent wrestling scene this year, to the non WWE wrestling scene. I don't want to give him his roses. I can't, but I got to give MJF his roses. So, feud of the year, absolutely 110% was MJF versus Punk. The dog collar match was one of the most layered matches that I've seen in a long time. They were telling two or three different stories the entire time. The lead up to it was like a master class in how to take somebody apart on screen. Just beautiful, beautiful work. I thought that MJF came off as one of the most credible actors in the company because of his work with CM Punk. CM Punk brought out the best of him, and then he brought out the worst in everybody else.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. MJF is a star, and Punk is is where he is.
He's
He's
old, he's
commentating
tired, and he works with heavy
commentating MMA,
children.
and I guess he's happy.
Yeah,
It's very interesting to consider
actually.
now.
Hmm?
It's
What was
very
that, Cody?
interesting to consider now with the what's recently popped up on the FTR podcast about Dax and Cash's experience behind the scenes with Punk, and just seeing it from a different angle and a different perspective as to the fact that Punk didn't want to be champion. Tony just wanted him to be the champion, and the seeing, and I've never been a Punk supporter, but it was a really interesting story to see and hear,
Mhm.
just how something could be twisted so differently from different sides of the story. On, you know, Dax saying how amazing he was and how he was working with everybody and bringing everybody up, and then you see the other side with all of the dirt sheets and the reports saying how he was the problem and the cancer in the back room, and which side is really the truth.
Absolutely. And that's another thing I want to say about MJF that we learned this entire time was we know that he was put under oath and did a statement about what happened at Brawl Out. And when someone gets hurt and he posts something about it, like he's actually worried, you know that it's serious. This man is not lying. He's just a piece of shit. And I love it. He plays it day and night perfectly. And Punk showed us that. So feud of the year, no question within AEW was MJF versus Punk. And I hate that it got overshadowed by Punk's poor behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was whether you believe it or not, whether you believe what Dax says or not, what he did at the media scrum. Oh, I'm gonna scrum. Is everything he did was absolutely not what you do sitting beside your boss. If Kenny and the Bucks hadn't gone in that locker room, I think Tony would have benched Punk anyway for making him look like an absolute fool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was
I'm very happy to see MJF was involved in that, because like if he wasn't involved in any feud of the year, I'd be surprised.
Oh, he's so good this year. There's a reason he's that they finally put the belt on him. I'm glad that they finally pulled the trigger on that.
Mm-hmm. You could have put anyone in there; it would have been appropriate. MJF and anyone.
MJF and anybody. He is a walking feud.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go ahead and jump to show of the year for all of our various companies. So we're going to go ahead and start with WWE, because we haven't done that yet. And this is going to be an interesting one, but it's one that I covered again. And the fact that I cover some of these makes it a little bit more for me. NXT Deadline. NXT Deadline was the latest NXT premium live event. And this thing delivered 4 out of 5 killer matches. They brought in the most convoluted concept of a championship scramble match, which borrowed from Impact and borrowed from the Royal Rumble and borrowed from everything. And they made an Iron Man match, the Iron Survivor, which was a 25-minute match where people came in 5-minute intervals, and the person who had the most pinfalls or submissions or countouts or disqualifications at the end of the match would be the number 1 contender for the championship. But if you were pinned or submitted or disqualified, you had to go in the penalty box for 90 seconds. So it incorporates all of these delightfully weird gimmicks from everything else. But they told 2 entirely different stories in 2 entirely different matches with the men and the women in the show. Where the women opened the show and had this delightful match where all of the women shined and Roxanne Perez was able to win, and then parlay that the following Tuesday into her NXT Women's Championship win when everything happened with Mandy Rose. And then we go on the back end towards the end of the show with the men, where all of a sudden we had times where men were getting pinned in consecutive segments where Grayson Waller pinned 2 people back to back, and in 10 seconds he had 2 falls just from coming into the match. An absolutely sensational match. It was also followed with the New Day versus Pretty Deadly for the NXT Tag Team Championships. Just an A-plus card from start to finish until the main event, which we're going to pretend didn't happen between Braun Breaker and Apollo Crews, because that wasn't a great match. But for me, that was absolutely my show of the year, was NXT Deadline.
Cool. I can't say I saw that one or any of the matches that came into it, but I did hear some of the results that came out of it, and I did see that a lot of people were very, very excited and very happy with this. I think the general consensus is a lot of the people agree with your choice.
And also, more importantly, NXT does this great thing, and WWE to an extent. They're in this world of 2.5 hour shows. Mm-hmm. Like, I can get behind a pay-per-view where I'm watching
nice.
5 matches, 2.5 hours. I'm in, I'm out, and I'm done.
My goodness, I just watched Queendom for 5.5 hours yesterday, man.
It's like trying to cover the G1. Jesus Christ.
Oh my God, that was exhausting.
They just got done covering 3 tag team tournaments all at once. Trust me, they understand how difficult it is to cover 3
Oh my God, I'm still putting out shorts from that stuff.
We're going to go ahead and jump to AEW's show of... Oh, sorry, Cody.
I will say, even though I didn't actually watch the entirety of the show from Deadline, the big takeaway for me from it was that WWE finally has a win on a new gimmick. It's been so long; they've been stuck. They haven't really tried a lot of new gimmicks, but this version of the Scramble match, I loved the old Scramble matches back when we had the Brian Kendrick as a world champion for a split second. But this version of the Scramble match built on that old idea and made it more realistic and really went over well with both matches, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and jump over to AEW Show of the Year.
You had a great time at All Out. Revolution was fantastic, but man, it has to be Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door really, really showed so much talent that American audiences had just never seen. It made people just rise up. People know who like Shota Umino are. How if you didn't watch NJPW during, the G1 Climax 29, you weren't necessarily going to know that. And, getting Clark Connors in there. God, just, we had such an interesting part of the Bullet Club show up. Mm-hmm. El Fantasma, my God. We had a great time in that show, and it had my second.
The last time Suzuki Gun was performing in North American soil, also with Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru.
Oh yeah,
Lance Archer
and
too.
This was happening after a East Coast tour that NJPW and NJPW Strong did. And for it to sort of culminate in this was really neat. I got to see the show in DC beforehand and just mwah. So it was weird to see like Mox and Tanahashi when they had been part of a fatal four-way for the U.S. title, for IWGP U.S. title. And to have them just be together, just the two of them, beautiful. Mwah, better than I could have thought. But my second best match of the year, man, that came from that show. And it was Orange Cassidy and Will Ospreay.
This show is
watching people find out that Orange Cassidy can go. Oh, that was brilliant. It was brilliant because if you watch him on the Indies, of course you know he can go. But to see him go toe to toe and take Ospreay to the limit, I don't think anybody was expecting that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The thing I always think about with this show with Forbidden Door is what could have been, because so many of the top stars from New Japan just kept going down with injuries, left, right, and center.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
This show could have been even better.
It was an absolutely cursed show, and what we ended up with was just this beautiful flower coming out of these disgusting ashes, and it was great. I had a great time, and I think everybody who watched it probably did, unless they were just being, jerks and had garbage things to drink and were with people they didn't want.
This show actually is a very, very near and dear to my heart, because this was actually the first show that Andre and I actually worked together as like a broadcasting duo with Mike on Backbreaker Media. We actually did the pre-show together. And that was where I was inspired to start doing this and start working with Mike and start working with Andre as my co-host regularly. So this show is very near and dear to me. I love this show. We actually saw this at a local bar. We had a lot of fun. Cody, were you at this show? I feel like you were there. You weren't there?
Nope.
Why the hell weren't you? What the hell, Cody?
Why weren't you there?
Yeah, I really, really love this show. And like you said, Lauren, it was a really great introduction to North American crowds who may not have known anything about the NJPW guys. If you didn't know about Tomohiro Ishii, you certainly were made aware of him, but you didn't get to see him. You're certainly aware of him now.
Ishii was fantastic just this entire year. I'm just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ishii and his American tour Mwah. I just keep saying chef's kiss about this because there were no misses.
Hmm. Hmm. Despite all the hiccups that were coming with this show, it ended up being a very, very well done show. Good
Very
job.
entertaining. Very entertaining.
So we're going to jump over. We're already with New Japan, so we're going to stick with New Japan and talk about New Japan's show of the year.
There were so many good shows to come out of New Japan this year, but for me, I had to be that lady, and say that for me, my choice, NJPW Best Show of the Year, was the historic crossover show that featured Mayu Iwatani and Kairi Sane in the main event for the IWGP Women's Championship, the first crowning of the first ever women's champion. But that's just not all that happened in this show. We saw the Stardom women be given a Royal Rumble to start out the show and introduce the NJPW audience to these women. We saw incredible intergender matches where Tom Lawler and world champion at the time, Suri, took on the now world champion, Julia, and Zack Sabre Jr. That match was incredible, where we actually saw Julia and Suri forget who were the enemies, and they actually attacked Tom Lawler, and I had to just shout that out because that just warmed my heart. But for me, the match of this whole historic takeover show, besides the main event, which was off the chain, Utami Hayashishida and Hiroshi Tanahashi, the aces of Stardom and NJPW, taking on the samurais of Hiroki Goto and Maika, who's my personal girl crush. Just seeing Maika go toe to toe with Tanahashi and just full on take that punch to the face that wrecked Goto's lip a few months earlier, see her take it, get back up, and then suplex Tanahashi was just absolutely incredible. The Aces ended up coming on over the top of the Samurais in this one, but this show was just such an incredible introduction to the NJPW fans for the Stardom women. They put on an incredible show, and just to see how it all turned out was super, super exciting. Andre and I actually did the live stream with our good friend Yvonne on this, and this was Yvonne's first experience with Japanese wrestling entirely. She went in completely blind, had no idea what was going on, and she absolutely loved it. She's hooked now. We've got her, guys. She's a regular viewer. So excited. Did any of you guys have the opportunity to take in the show as well?
I did not.
I'm hearing it from you. And you're making it sound like it's fantastic. So if it's on the NJPW World site, I'll try and watch it in the next couple of days.
It is on both now. You can find it on NJPW World and Stardom World now. So if you have either one of those, go check it out. Highly, highly recommend. Incredible show.
And Mel, why we have you here? Let's go ahead and just hit the Stardom match show of the year, because it is, ironically, it is a different show.
Yeah, ironically, it is a different show. So the match that I chose for Stardom was another match that happened closer to the end of the year here. It was something that Andre and I also just reviewed, and that was the Goddess of Stardom Tag League Finals. This show was absolutely insane. These women are insane. This show saw the end of the tournament, essentially. So you actually had a couple teams wrestling twice on this show. My personal favorite and pick in this tournament was the team of Aphrodite, which featured Utami Hayashishida and Saya Kamitani. These girls wrestled the semi-main event against, I believe it was Meltier, defeated them, and then had to go into the back, wait for their music to hit a second time, and limp out after just having wrestled a match to take part in the finals against Yu and Nane Takahashi. I was honestly hooked, especially by this main event. The championship match was on the line. Both these teams wanted it so badly. We were talking about 7-Up, which is Nane, Takahashi, and Yu, the entire tournament, how dominant, how powerful, how just unapologetically arrogant that 7 Up was being in their power. They really showed it in the match against Aphrodite. But Saya Kamitani and Utami Hayashi Shida, they are not women to just lay down. Saya Kamitani put up a hell of a fight in that main event. She was in for the last bit. Oof. I to go to semi-main and main event, that's just insane. And they just handled it with such poise and such grace. These women are absolutely insane. Did any of you guys have a chance to take in the Goddess of Stardom tournaments?
So, Stardom is on my list for next year to look into and learn more about, because I keep hearing such wonderful things, and I watch you and Andre, and I watch you guys talk about it, and I'm excited to see what happens. And with the rumors of who might be in Stardom, it might not be a bad time for North American fans to go ahead and take a look, because there might be a familiar face.
Oh, so you're a Jazzy Gabbert fan?
I love the alpha female. Like, don't get me wrong. She was a missed opportunity by WWE.
100%.
I think she could have been massive for them had they been smart enough to keep her. But letting her go back to Japan was not a bad idea, because letting her go back to Japan has made her one of the most interesting gaijin wrestlers in Japan. And she is at home with these that big woman with these little big girls. Just sounds so interesting and so fun.
She is an Amazon amongst those women for sure.
Yeah. And Astrid obviously talking about Jazzy Gabbert there, and Barry jumping in saying for him the IPWF throwback throwdown 3. Cody, speaking of Impact, is this your Impact show of the year? Throwback throwdown?
It is not, but it was a fantastically well done, well written, well performed show. Personally, for me, I
for those
love.
Who don't know, I just want to reiterate, for those who don't know, the throwback throwdowns are essentially Impact's version of Southpaw Regional Wrestling from WWE. So these are their like 80s, 90s like geeky throwback shows where it's like everybody plays these weird characters, and Josh Matthews is Scott D'Amore's kid, and
Giuseppe Scovelli Jr.
Yes. And Mike Bailey has a character that's more than just I'm a good wrestler, which is always nice.
Throwback Throwdown 3 was epic. It was excellent. It was by far the best of the Throwback Throwdowns, for sure. Personally, I love seeing Josh Matthews wrestle. I know he doesn't seem to want to do it as a full-time thing. He's happy being the behind-the-scenes commentator, producer, interviewer, all of those roles. But when I've seen him actually get in the ring, it reminds me of the fact that he was a tough enough competitor and actually is quite talented in the ring as well. For me, though, as much as it may be for my own selfish reasons, my match of the year for Impact this year had to be Bound for Glory. It was the first show that Astrid and I did our Making an Impact review for. It was a fantastically filled card with nothing but hits as far as the matches. You had Josh Alexander versus Eddie Edwards. You had Masha Slamovich versus Jordan Grace for the Knockouts Championship. You had Frankie Kazarian defeating Mike Bailey for the X Division Championship, which ultimately led to an Option C cash-in. You had Knockouts tag titles on there. You had Honor No More's Kingdom taking on the Motor City Machine Guns in one of the best tag matches I've seen in a long time. Just hit after hit after hit. And it was tough for me between this and Slammiversary, because Slammiversary was a love letter to all wrestling fans. It was the 20th anniversary. It was bringing back all of your old names, old faces, having a lot of just nostalgic moments, including a Monsters Ball match, the first ever Queen of the Mountain match, lots of that. But Bound for Glory for me, just top to bottom, the card didn't ever feel flat. It didn't feel disjointed. It felt like everything ran together, and every story coming out of this card led to more going forward through the rest of the year so far. And it doesn't hurt to have Josh Alexander and Eddie Edwards and Jordan Grace versus Masha Slamovich, which were both, without giving any spoilers, both of those matches were in the running for my match of the year this year.
Can see why. We just saw those two live, Masha and Josh Alexander, and wow,
Yeah,
just as great live as they are on TV.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming to the end of the year here. We're coming to the end of the show as we're getting closer. We're going to go ahead and start talking about match of the year in everybody's promotion. Cody, you were just mentioning it. So what did win Impact Match of the Year?
So there was a lot to go off of here. Like I said, we had Eddie and Josh. We had Masha and Jordan, both of their matches. We had Frankie and Josh. We had Josh and Mike Bailey. We had Josh and Eric Young. Wait, am I talking about the Walking Weapon here a lot? I am, because this man just put on hit after hit after hit all year long. But at the end of the day, I had to come around and give credit where credit is due. And the honest best match I saw all year in Impact Wrestling had to be the rematch between Masha Slamovich and Jordan Grace at Overdrive. The last knockout standing match that these two put on. The first match was absolute brutality, sheer, utter, brutal beatdown of both women, and then they came back and topped it by including the last knockout standing stipulation to it, where they just went and absolutely beat the living hell out of each other. Everything just felt stiff. I wouldn't have been surprised if either one of these women got legitimately knocked out for a 10 count at any point in the match. If you haven't seen it yet, it is a must-watch for women's wrestling. It is top-tier, absolutely 5-star women's wrestling matches. The best you will see anywhere. I would put it up with Sasha and Bailey from New York.
That's definitely high praise. I mean, one of the greatest things that I've gotten to do this year is learn to appreciate the greatness that is Masha Slamovich, because she's a name that wasn't known to me. While I attend some indie shows, I don't attend a ton. She wasn't in the Northeast a whole bunch that I can remember seeing. So being able to see her more and more over the course of this year has been an amazing journey, and it's been fun to watch, because she is the future, I think, of the Impact Knockouts division. I think should she choose to continue staying there, I think the sky is the limit for her as far as that's concerned. So, looks like Cody's having a little bit of a problem, so we're going to drop Cody for just a few seconds while he gets his internet sorted out. We have Barry Monkey jumping in saying that he agrees Grace versus Slamovich is a great match. He'd also say PCO versus Jonah. First mention we've had Jonah Sene. I'm sure next year we might have more mention of Jonah. I mean, I don't think
just not as Jonah.
Just not as we don't know that. We have Carl Anderson coming back next week.
But like, is Jonah in WWE now, or is he back to Bronson Reed?
He's back to Bronson Reed.
Yeah. So we won't be talking about Jonah next year. We'll be talking to Bronson Reed.
It depends on how the trade goes.
I'm just gonna flat out say, WWE, stop changing people's heckin' frackin' names. A girl is already having mental problems, remembering simple shit. Stop making it difficult on us. Just leave their frickin' names. You don't need to copyright everything. That was my take.
They tend to take last names away from a lot of people of color, I've noticed. And then they just become one name. It's like, excuse me? It's like they did it with... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, they did it with a lot of people. Like, yes, it happened a lot to those people. I mean, Theory was Theory for a long time. They took away his first name. We all know Cesaro. He lost Antonio for a long time. Alexander Rusev. We lost Alexander. With Triple H, I think we're going to have a lot less of the one-name superstars, because I don't think he's as obsessed with Madonna as everybody else is. But,
I think that's that Vince era ending again. I feel like that was a Vince thing.
Oh, I wholeheartely believe it was a Vince thing.
That was absolutely insane.
We're going to jump back over the border again. We're going to go from the wonderful land of Canada, and we're going to go back to Japan and talk about Match of the Year in Stardom.
Oof. This one I struggled with. Again, I gave you a runner-up, and I gave you my real one. The runner-up was actually a recent match, which was Atami Hayashishita versus Suri. That match was just absolutely everything you want in a strong style match. Utami, one of my personal favorites, Surya world champion. You got to know that that was an absolute banger. These girls were just kicking the crap out of each other. But my match of the year, we actually just kind of shadowed into it before coming into here. My match of the year is the incredible alpha female Jazzy Gabbert versus Kyrie in the IWG. Look at my face. In the tournament for the IWGP Women's Championship. This match was absolutely incredible. Jazzy Gabbert coming in and just doing what Jazzy does best. She was the alpha female. She was immovable for Kyrie. Kyrie was throwing everything she got, including herself, into Jazzy as hard and as much as possible. Jazzy not given an inch. This match for me was just incredible because it was the best combination of an outside of Japan wrestler and an inside of Japan wrestler. Kyrie having that boundless experience from her excursion both in North America and her experience in Japan in Stardom before leaving. Jazzy just coming in with that power, that dominance. She looked fantastic. Both these women looked fantastic. Their gear is just incredible. But just the pure beatdown and watching Kyrie pull out every single thing in her bag of tricks and arsenal to try to just ground Jazzy was absolutely incredible. If you're looking for just an awesome, strong style match where these women are just fighting for the glory of having a championship, this is something that you want to watch. And this match actually happened in the beginning of the Goddess of Stardom tournament. So it happened the exact same night. So some of the participants in the Goddess of Stardom tournament were fighting in the IWGP tournament still that night. So we had a couple very fun shows. So that's actually a very fun show to watch all together because it sets up this kind of feel for the Goddess of Stardom Championship tournament if that's something you're wanting to watch, which highly recommend. That it was just stacked with powerhouses this year. Definitely recommend you guys check it out. Did you guys take in the IWGP Women's Tournament at all?
I have not. Cody?
No,
Gotta
not
check
really. I
it
caught bits and pieces on Twitter, but it's just what popped up on my feed.
Highly recommend you check it out. Again, it was one of the best matches that I've seen Jazzy do. And she was coming off of her match against Ava White in the same tournament, which was in itself an incredible match. I didn't think she could step it up further from there, but man, did she sure surprise me.
So we're going to jump over to AEW where we've got two matches of the years because we got one for the men and one for the women. But I'm going to start with the women because I think this is going to be an interesting choice.
And I think some people might get mad.
And nobody's going to get mad. I'm already saying I've allowed this for various reasons, and we'll get into it as soon as we see what the match is.
Okay. When I looked at the women's matches, there were extraordinary ones this year. There was, of course, the most recent extraordinary one, which was Hayter versus Tony Storm. And it was really good, but it's not my match of the year. To go back, I had to go to New Year's Eve of last year.
Ooh.
Penny Ford plus Allie the Bunny versus Ty J. And it was move for move, one of the cleanest shows that all four of these women have put on separately or together. And like, I was on the edge of my seat for the vast majority of it. I was just like looking at them bleed and thinking, what are they doing? Why is she going to go put her through that? No, it's too high. And that's exactly what I want from a match. I want to be entertained. I want to be absolutely glued to the screen. And women's wrestling did a lot of that this year for me. But man, no one covered that match because it was after everybody's best of the year last year. And that did it a very big disservice. If you can go ahead and grab it and watch it again, by all means, it was on Rampage. It was fantastic.
Speaking of Rampage, can we go ahead and get your AEW men's match of the year while we're here?
Oh God, yeah.
Speaking of Rampage, speaking of blood.
Right, Rampage of Blood and all the things I love in life. My match of the year was Jon Moxley versus Wheeler Yuta on the April 8th Rampage. It was the show closer, and it was the peak of the BCC storyline. And watching Yuta go from being, oh, jobber, someone on Dark, to someone that the crowd loved. They were like, Yuta, against Mox, against their like champion. So how could you not, just get into that energy? But then, oh man, it was the Crimson Mask that you ended up with on Wheeler Yuta after Mox put his head into the steel stairs. And that set the tone for the rest of the match. It made submissions harder to do. It made pinfalls harder because there was just blood everywhere, and it's slick and it's sticky at times you don't want it to be. And then at the end of the match, when William Regal and Daniel Bryan came up, Bryan Danielson, my apologies.
See the name thing.
It's a real issue. If they had just called him Bryan Danielson from ROH, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah.
So, but when they came up and William Regal finally extended his hand, instead of like slapping him or giving him more shit, extended his hand. And he pulled his fingers through the blood on his face and wrote BCC on his chest for Blackpool Combat Club. And it was one of the best visuals of the year, as well as one of the best matches of the year. And it's my best match of AEW for 2022.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed the same thing in Strong when I would see Yuta coming around. He did kind of go through that, went through the jobber into the crowd favorite very, very quickly. I don't know what he did, but man, he marketed himself right.
He got in with like Mox and Bryan. Mm-hmm. And when you get in with Mox and Bryan, you're basically just going to be taken care of to an extent. Like people know who Shota Umino is because of Mox. People know who Wheeler Yuta is because Mox had that series with him. Mm-hmm. But also, you got to work hard enough to get that industry professional behind you. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know how much of it was just the luck of the draw and how much of it was his just balls to the wall hard work.
Mm-hmm. Because he was very quiet before then. I kind of looked at Yuta as being that extreme baby face who like was almost passive. He wasn't aggressive in any way. So I was surprised that he was on anyone's radar. Because those are typically the people who do tend to be a career jobber. To see him kind of come out there and now he's a champion, or he at the time was a champion. Now
champion.
Yeah. Now he's with the he's got the alignment that he does. It's definitely huge leaps and bounds in a good direction for him for sure.
And very, very quickly, again, another 0 to hero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hercules.
But the men's match of the year.
Yeah.
Y'all.
And when we talk about combat, we talk about combat, we talk about blood. We're going to talk about it a different way for the WWE.
Sorry, the Twitch chat was brilliant. Yeah. That's brilliant. Having been to Blackpool, yes, that's exactly it.
Barry's always good for a great comment. I love when Barry's in the stream. But speaking of combat, speaking of blood, and speaking of Blackpool, almost kind of sorta. We're going to go to Clash of the Castle for my match of the year. And we're going to go ahead and talk about the 5-star banger between Walter and Sheamus. By the way, thank you WWE for having great pictures that I can pull from and not being like New Japan and Stardom where I had to make my own.
You call that great? Look at that dude's face.
This is fantastic.
That dude's face looks rough.
Walter's face is Walter's face. That's
Walter looks like a Walter grandpa.
Walter looks normal. Walter and that looked like they had like squished an Undertaker action figure.
He looked like one of those portraits that you go to on like the boardwalk where they like animate you in like this super weird animation where they make your like face look way more larger or whatever in places. That's what that looks like. That's not a
I'm just gonna
picture
say I
of a
love that we're still
person.
calling him Walter.
I mean, he
Right?
is Gunther. It is
Again, this
Gunther,
goes
but
back to that name thing. Stop messing with names. Just
But
stop
no.
it.
But no,
Man,
like
it looks
when
like
you
AI art. It looks like their hands should be messed up.
but when you talk about WWE and you talk about the match of the year, I mean, it was the 5-star match from WWE for the year. It was one of the most entertaining things that WWE's put on in a long time. They just let these two guys go out there and beat the hell out of each other in a place where they're familiar with. We had an Irishman and an Austrian just going ahead and beating each other up in England. Like it's just what happens. It's just the wonderful
Sounds
things
like an
that happen.
NJPW match.
It
So
does.
European.
And it was just absolutely fantastic, and it was just like I wanted to pull the photo of Sheamus's chest after the match where it's just all cuts, all bruises, just all red, and just it's one of the most amazing things that WWE's put on in a long time. And it's just the wonderful things that Triple H can do now that we have somebody in charge who's willing to let us have a match like this, as opposed to giving us. While I loved some of those matches, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, because letting Brock Lesnar bring, a tractor to the ring was probably the second best match of the year for me. Because what other match do you have where the ring's tilted sideways for the last couple minutes of the match?
That's true.
But absolutely, I couldn't let the year go by without talking one more time about just the absolute slap fest and just beat down of a match that was Gunther versus Sheamus for the Intercontinental Championship. Well, we've come to our Wrestler of the Year, our Male Wrestler of the Year for everybody's categories. We're going to go ahead and start with Impact. Cody, who is... I mean, it's obviously going to be the walking weapon, Josh Alexander, right?
You would think. You really would think that that's who I would go with after all I've said about all the amazing things that Josh Alexander has done this year. He has put on match after match after match, but there's somebody else who's done match after match after match and really stolen that spotlight this year from him, almost in the literal sense, just a couple weeks ago. He signed his contract on Josh Alexander's back a year ago this month. He made his debut in a win in a fatal four-way against guys like Ace Austin and Laredo Kid. He's put on matches with Alex Shelley, with Jake Something, Trey Miguel, Alan Angels, Diener, Rocky Romero, a who's who of X Division wrestlers. It has to be my fellow Canadian, the speedball Mike Bailey. This man has not made a single misstep in Impact Wrestling since signing his contract. His crowning moment on top of the Ultimate X with that X Division title at Slammiversary this year. Before he won the title, after he won the title, even losing the title to Kazarian, I believe the man only has 3 or 4 pinfall losses in Impact over the entirety of this year. He is the man who should be the next X Division champion. As much as I've been talking on Making an Impact about Steve Macklin being that guy, Mike Bailey has done everything necessary this year to put himself at the top of the list of guys deserving of a world title reign, and the ceiling is non-existent for this man. There is no glass ceiling for Mike Bailey. He can be a world champion anywhere in the world, and it's just a shame he got stuck in Canada during COVID and couldn't get down and start doing this on a worldwide audience much sooner.
Mm-hmm. You would be able to see if he was near the glass ceiling. You would see the footprints on the top of it because he's not wearing frickin' shoes. I can't even tell you the stress and anxiety it gives me just knowing that he's not wearing shoes. It just, first of all, you're wiping your foot across someone's face. You don't know what you've walked through backstage. That's just gross. But now you also have left yourself open to a little bit more injury. And let me tell you, when I stub my toe, it is like drama. Like, I can't even imagine. This guy must have no feeling in his feet from his like incredible martial arts. history or something, because like it just gives me anxiety watching him without shoes. But I have to agree, the matches that I have seen of him, the things that I have seen of him, and then his also like just activity with the crowd, with the fans on social media, he's ahead and above everybody in Impact, with experience, but then likability.
Well, and not just in the ring too, because I want to give a shout out to the man and a congratulations, because
Mhm.
not only did he do amazing things in the wrestling world this year, he also
Mhm.
married the wonderful, amazing, gorgeous Veda Scott.
Oh, wow. Lucky Mama Jamma.
So we're going to go back to New Japan for a minute here, but we're going to backtrack a little bit. We're talking about Cody's Wrestle of the Year. I forgot that when we talked about the Stardom match of the year, we did forget to talk about the New Japan match of the year. It involves one of my favorite wrestlers in New Japan, so we're going to go back and talk about it.
So yeah, real quickly we'll cover that one. So the match of the year for me was Jay White versus Tama Tonga. I felt that the feud leading up to this match was absolutely incredible. Obviously, Cody having a firsthand, seeing of Jay White kicking Tama Tonga out of the Bullet Club on Impact. The subsequent feud that followed involving Hikuleo, the kind of is he, isn't he, the subsequent departure of Hikuleo from Bullet Club to stand with his brothers. Now Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, and Hikuleo seemingly a part of Hontai now, within the sub-faction of GOD. But this match, so full of emotion. Tama Tonga almost like just feral, trying to get in and just take down Jay White. This match was so good. If you like Jay White, know anything about Jay White, everything about his just I almost call him like a real cerebral assassin, because in the ring, he's not just great in ring. He has that almost Naito level effery in his head, in that he really likes to mind mess you while he is wrestling you, which creates a whole nother story within the match, not just even adding to the story that they created before coming in. Incredible match. This happened, I believe, at the Declaration of Power show. um incredible match. Like I said, emotionally charged, heavy hitting. Fortunately, Tama Tonga was came up short. Jay White was able to retain over him, but man, oh man, it wasn't without a hard fight. I highly recommend, even knowing the result, go check it out. It was an incredible feat for you guys to check out.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And moving on.
Anything
Yeah.
Tama Tonga is in is going to be a banger, and
Oh.
we already know that Jay White really put in that work when he
Mhm.
entered Bullet Club, and
Mhm.
he
Mhm.
became he called himself the Switchblade. Now he is.
Mhm.
Now he is
He's the
that
catalytic
trained
switchblade.
yeah. And watching him and Tonga go,
Mm.
I love it.
I always
I love
enjoy when he takes
Tama
off like that.
and his brother and
Mhm.
Piku. And they're real sweet people and real good human beings on top of being fantastic performers.
Mhm, mhm.
Good call.
So Ed, you wanted me to talk about the superstar of the year now for New
Yes,
Japan?
please, if you don't mind.
Okay, this might not be a surprise to people. This might be a surprise to people. I know my co-host Andre C is going to be very happy about my personal choice here. This is a person who has been active from the start of the year to the end of the year, even throughout injury. This guy was vocal. He was loud. He was unapologetically brash and continues to be. And I personally feel he has every right to be. He's earned that right. Superstar of the year, my choice, the one and only Will Ospreay, who has just come out of nowhere as a junior and just pretty much just explicited his way to the top of the list for everything. What Will Ospreay wants, Will Ospreay gets. He just has to ask for it right now. Forming the United Empire in arguably one of the worst times in professional wrestling, building the United Empire this year with the addition of Aussie Open. You have Francisco Akira now. Akira and TJP being the current IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions. Aussie Open were in the finals facing Bishamon for the World Tag League tournament. This faction has really been built up by Will Ospreay to show the absolute meaning of brotherhood in a time where factions have almost sort of splintered off and broken up. There's been a lot of breakups this year, I'm noticing, within a lot of the factions, whereas the United Empire did the opposite. They unified. You can see in the Andre and Melball reviews, we just praise the hell out of United Empire because they're the only faction who are actually backing their other faction members. And I feel that has a lot to do with Will Ospreay's kind of involvement there. But Will Ospreay, even when he was injured, he had a very major, I believe it was a kidney problem that could have potentially been fatal. He was still mouthing off the entire time. He did not let his name fade into obscurity while he was gone. And I think that's why, for me, he is the superstar of the year, because he has kept himself elevated even in times where he should have started to fade out. What do you guys think of Will Ospreay?
I mean, the man had about 15 5-star matches this year. It would have been a shame if he wasn't the Wrestler of the Year.
Put on another one at Wrestle Kingdom.
Hey, Kenny
The only
Omega.
thing I
I
can
mean,
say-
it's going to be a banger.
The only thing I can say negative about Will Ospreay's year is that he retired that massively brilliant green lion coat. And I think that was a big mistake. It's a great coat.
He'll have another
Yeah.
one.
The white
He's
one
got an
doesn't
endless
look
collection
Hey,
like
of
I
his
mean,
tiger
Wrestle Kingdom
coats.
is always an opportunity to debut one of those, though.
You know,
You
if
might
it
have
comes
a
out
better
with a
one
different
for,
color with
Wrestle
another
Kingdom.
animal like grafted onto it, I'd be okay.
Yeah,
I'd be okay.
yeah.
I'm more disappointed he doesn't bring the sword out to every show, but
Traveling with that must
Could
be-
you imagine? I
Drew
mean,
makes it work.
Dralistico is doing that now, and I kind of feel a little unsafe with him doing it. I definitely think I'd feel more safe with Will Ospreay doing it.
Drew makes it work bringing this sword out all the time. It's fine.
I mean, the sword is also as tall as Drew.
That's what happens when you got an Irish Claymore.
Exactly.
Claymores are Scottish.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
What she said.
No. It's probably true since he is a Scottish wrestler, yeah.
I was gonna say he is Scottish. Seamus is the Irish one.
Yeah,
You can't confuse the two Irish.
It's
Irish
all the
people.
same.
Yeah,
It's all
not
the
not
same.
not good.
Oh.
Not good look, man. Not good look. Not
We
good look,
apologize to our Irish and Scottish viewers. Ed did not mean what he said.
Speaking of people who feuded with the Irish and the Scots this year, we're going to go ahead and go back to WWE for a moment here, and we're going to talk about my Wrestler of the Year. Now, I'm going to throw up the photo, and I'm going to see if people can guess which one of these is my Wrestler of the Year. Here's the photo.
I'm going with Zayn.
5 deserving men.
I'm going to go with Sami Zayn. Yes, Sami Zayn has been an absolute highlight of the year in WWE this year. This match specifically, I think, told one of the greatest stories where he turns on his best friend. When everybody turns on Sami Zayn turns on somebody else for once and holds the hand.
See, I told you, don't get us in trouble.
Hi, Tom. I'm sure I'll hear about this one on
Boss man,
Twitter
what you
after the
doing?
show. But I mean, the Bloodline storyline is probably the best thing WWE's done all year. This storyline has encompassed the last couple of years. Roman, while not being able to wrestle, has the most amazing persona. But if he wrestled a little more, it probably would have been Roman. Seth had great matches, and he had a great story with Cody. But at the end of the day, I felt like there was something missing from that. And the Sami Zayn storyline, with him thinking he was an honorary Uso, and them not taking him seriously, and then Roman bringing him in as a joke, and then Roman seemingly starting to love Sami. The heartbreaking moment that is about to come, when the Bloodline turns on Sami Zayn, is going to make him one of the biggest baby faces in the world.
It's true.
For all of those people who wanted Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and people like that to be world champion, we are on the cusp of the potential of having Sami Zayn potentially being a world champion. potentially taking on somebody like Roman Reigns. I am still campaigning that at the main event of night 2 of the of the WrestleMania should be Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns, with Sami having won the Rumble. I think that would be great.
100%.
But Sami Zayn has done an amazing job making himself invaluable. So many clips have been made of things that he has done. So many things have. He is the most entertaining person. And in a place like World Wrestling Entertainment, it's not always the wrestling that you need to do well, it's the entertaining. And as entertaining as Seth Rollins is, you cannot fault Sami Zayn for being one of the best wrestlers of the year.
I have to agree. I don't watch WWE, but man, I have seen more about this feud than anything else. Besides Rhea Ripley's butt. I've seen a lot of Rhea Ripley's butt.
And for good reason, we've seen a lot of Rhea Ripley's butt.
Yes,
Yes,
I know about the butt
is
support.
online. If you're looking for butts, you'll eventually get that. You curate your own experiences online.
It is my WWE experience. I search for WWE, I get Sami Zayn and Rhea Ripley's butt. It is what it is.
But moving on from Rhea Ripley's wonderful, wonderful backside to finish out the show, we are gonna. Oh, we have one thing: the Sami verse. Yeah, there's so many places that it can go with that Sami story, and that's what makes Sami so great. Mm-hmm. We're gonna go ahead and close. I believe this is meant for you, Miss Mel. Your co-host is telling you to calm down.
I know, says can't handle the heat. It's Rhea Ripley's butt.
But speaking of heat and speaking of wonderful things, we do have the AEW Male Wrestler of the Year.
Yes. And this was actually really hard to choose because we had, another Zero to Hero story with Ricky Starks. He can't go in front of an audience without them being behind him now, which it was not what I expected for this year. That's for sure. I was not expecting him to become, like part of the top card. I was not hoping for that. It would have been great, but there you go. But that's not who I chose. And MJF gave performances of his career. Mwah. Didn't wrestle very much. Not my wrestler of the year. My wrestler of the year, 110%. And it was my wrestler of the year last year, is Jon Moxley. You son of a bitch.
What?
I feel like J. Jonah Jameson now. Bring me more pictures of Jon Moxley kissing dudes. There's a lot of that. But yeah, that match with Effie was great. It was so messed up. But what we saw from Mox this year wasn't just like a whole range of different kinds of things that he can do in the ring. And we already know that he's amazing on the mic. What we found out this year was that he has, kiss a homie. There you go. That's right. Kiss your homies on the lips. Good night. So I'm sorry, Andy got me. What we saw with him was him coming forward as a locker room leader. Sort of, he came back from rehab and decided, okay, I'm going to take everything on my shoulders. And then Brawl Out happened. And Tony was like, hey, can you take everything on your shoulders again? And so he worked on a handshake deal for 5 months, carrying that company in a lot of ways. And so his new contract is beautiful. And his wife works there and she's beautiful. And their kid is fantastic. And he's sober. And he's elevating talent every single week. I mean, you can't look at anybody else on that roster and think that anyone is doing the most, more than Jon Moxley.
And with that, the 2022 year has come to an end. The award show has come to an end. We've covered everything there is to cover, except where we can find our lovely co-hosts going on in the future. So we're going to go ahead and give the big screen to each of them as they talk about places where they can find themselves throughout the rest of 2023. Mel.
Oh, here I am trying to remember my socials. If you want to follow a Melball, you can follow me on Twitter at Collins Melball. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Melball Collins. You can catch me weekly, usually on Wednesdays and Fridays, uploading with Andre and Melball's Wrestling Talk. And you can catch me every other Friday with the incomparable, beautiful, natural Astrid Pizarro on our Ladies Wrestling Showcase that happens on Astrid's YouTube as well as her Twitch. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Cody.
You can find me every Thursday night on Making an Impact with the very same wonderful, incomparable, natural Astrid Pizarro, our dual co-host between Mel and I that shares both responsibilities of both shows because she is wonderful and amazing. We'll be back next Thursday. We didn't have a show last night because Impact just put on their end of the year awards, but next week we're back to some entertaining Impact Wrestling action in the ring on the way to Hard to Kill, and we will be doing a immediate reaction following Hard to Kill on that Friday night as well.
Lauren.
Hi. You guys can find me on my Twitter at Lulu Goodnight, LuLuGoodnight. You can find me on Instagram at I am Lauren Goodnight. And you can find me on Twitch and YouTube at Lauren Goodnight. Spelled exactly the way you fucking think it is.
Whoops. Sorry, thought she was done.
No.
Of course, you can find me here on OLE Pods most all the time. Every Tuesday night with, again, the aforementioned Astrid, because we all share a co-host. You can find me with Astrid co-hosting, taking over the NXT recap show. You can find me on my Twitter at edfries12584. You can find me on my Twitch at edfries2002, where I'll be potentially starting to stream some gaming. I keep saying it. I will be doing it. I promise. I will be doing some gaming streams.
New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
We just got to get Lauren to work with Astrid.
Yes.
I want to throw out
to.
that despite the fact that all four of us watch different wrestling promotions, we're all kind of focused more on different areas. The best part of this year, I think, has been all of the crossover we've got. From the NJPW Forbidden Door, we had the NJPW Stardom crossover event, we had the Impact Knockouts champion in the Royal Rumble at the start of the year, we've got a WWE tag team wrestler holding the never openweight title in New Japan and about to go wrestle on a New Japan show while still signed with WWE. It has been an amazing year for interpromotional wrestling that I think we can all agree that it's been an amazing time to be a wrestling fan and see and learn about different promotions.
Yeah.
We have so much wrestling available to us to watch every single week, and it sort of doesn't matter where you come from or what you enjoy doing. You're going to find wrestling for you, maybe for the first time ever. There will be something for you.
And also, before we go, I just wanted to point out this something, because it was something that was said to me and I forgot to get a graphic made for it. To find all of these wonderful promotions, you can look up New Japan World and find that it is available for less than $10 a month. I believe even in Canada. I know US it's like $8.30 or something a month. You can find that there. Stardom World, I believe, is a similar price, and it's found at Stardom World, similar type of service. Both of those have English commentary. I think New Japan is a lot quicker on most of the big shows to have English commentary.
New Japan does for sure. Stardom, it's usually just the big show.
Okay. For Impact, you can find Impact Wrestling on its website. The easiest way to find it is on YouTube. It is $1 a month to see the weekly content. It is $5 a month to see the monthly big shows, and then they have the 4 big shows that you're going to have to pay for on a form of pay-per-view, whether it be your own. Oh, sorry.
It's also available on DAZN now.
It is also available on DAZN. Yes, this is true. I did forget about that. For WWE, you can find it all the wonderful places that you find WWE if you so choose. It's not hard to find that. The WWE Network for anybody outside of the U.S., Peacock for the U.S., plus the USA Network and Fox. For those of you who are looking to find AEW, if you're outside of the United States, it can be found on, I believe it's Fight TV, right?
Yes, it's
They
Fight.
have a package. They have a package.
TSN in Canada.
TSN in Canada. You can find it on TBS and TNT here in the States. Support wrestling. Support local independent wrestling. There is so much independent wrestling, and these are the stars we're going to be talking about in 5, 10, even potentially next year. with the fun with some of these people, it could be next year that we're talking about
Some of them.
these other stars.
Some.
Yes, Barry, and you can find it there too, but we're not going to go ahead and bring that up. For myself, for Cody, for Mel, and for Lauren, thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you probably next year with another show very similar to this. Have a great day, and goodbye.